for those 103 Canadian containers, estimated at more than $6 million 4 years ago. There's no official figure of how much the garbage has cost the Philippines since then.
In the world we're contributing to, and I just couldn't be prouder to be her son. For me, she is and continues to be a real inspiration and a source of tremendous pride.
I'm sorry I didn't, and in the future I will be clearing all my family vacations with the Commissioner's office. I've always considered the Aga Khan a close family friend, which is why I didn't clear this family trip in the first place, but given the Commissioner's report, I will be taking all precautions in the future. Happy to take your questions.
And the lie detector test determined that was a lie.
Are you serious? Wow. Why?
What's going on? And Pinocchio, again because he's naive, but also because he's not good. He's not evil either. He's neither or both. It depends on how you look at it. And he also has no idea how smart he is and how smart he isn't, or how smart the person he's talking to is. And instead of admitting what he's done, he lies about it. And that's interesting.
Unfortunately, as we all know, Canada hasn't always lived up to that ideal. This year,
Justin Trudeau has broken several conflict of interest rules over his controversial family vacation to the Aga Khan's private island last winter.
I take full responsibility for it. We need to make sure that the office of the Prime Minister is without reproach.
Lie detector test determined that was a lie.
The Commissioner didn't buy it.
Her responsibility is to protect the integrity of the office. She made a determination that he is not a family friend. I still consider him a family friend.
Trudeau is vowing to work with the Commissioner.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
I don't even want to sit by you. You wet.
That's how he, his wife, and their 3 children flew to the Caribbean islands of St. Kitts and Nevis for a New Year's holiday. A 9.5-hour return trip at a cost D&D estimates at $48,000. New records obtained by CTV News show that for 10 days and 9 nights, the government Challenger and its aircrew of 4 sat on the tarmac.
The opposition is doing everything it can to keep the SNC-Lavalin story alive.
Justin Trudeau is out of excuses. His only option is full transparency. He must finally end the cover-up.
While the Prime Minister is doing everything he can to move past it.
We've been working hard on that. We've been working hard on moving forward in a way that allows us to move on and invest in Canadians.
But as
Lie detector determined that was a lie.
Instead of admitting what he's done, he lies about it. And that's interesting because it does suggest that he understands at some level that he set himself up for this. Because, you know, he could have just told the truth. This horrible fox kidnapped me and sold me to this slaveholder.
Never meet the man responsible for it all. One of the richest and influential, but least known people in the Muslim world, the Aga Khan. He told us this is the first interview he's ever given to an American television network.
I've always taken the attitude that it's better that the work should speak rather than the individual.
We learned within a few days or a small number of weeks before heading down that there was a possibility that Secretary Kerry would be there. Obviously, it's not up to me to determine who the Aga Khan invites.
And that's worth listening to because so there's a bunch of things I've learned as a clinician. And one of them is, because you're often in really weird situations with people if you're a clinician, because things happen that don't happen normally, and you don't know what to do. And so what I've learned is I just say what's happening, whatever it is, regardless of what it is. You know, I'll just try to describe it as accurately as I can and not worry about in some sense, not worry about the consequences.
As is the case for any Prime Minister, the RCMP provides a protective service for the Prime Minister and my family, and does an excellent job of that. It has been the case for all Prime Ministers in the past, and certainly preoccupied by the number of jobs involved in this, in Quebec and obviously across the country. This is something that I was clear on, and that I asked her, even though I heard that she had made a decision. She indicated to me that she had made a decision. I asked her if she...
That is totally wrong. Totally wrong.
The Aga Khan's personal history is as fascinating as the ancient works he preserved.
I think he must have a good understanding of the issues which the Ismaili community and the countries in which they live will have to be addressed, and that is essentially the countries of Asia and Africa.
They believe he's the direct descendant and legitimate heir of the Muslim prophet Muhammad. They call the Aga Khan an imam.
You said no, the lie detector test determined that was a lie.
About the the state of the world, the state of expectations around the incoming administration on.
Don't disclose too much. That's just another lie. You tell the truth minimally and carefully and hopefully, and you might get out of it. You might get out of it. But if you falsify it, look the hell out. So.
My question for the one in the gate, the address. Why lie to people? Like, why not just tell the truth straight off the bat?
First of all, be clear. There's a lot of dresses up here.
First off, I'm going to need to watch your attitude, because I'm not the one.
No.
I'm not the one.
Let's be clear, okay? You mad because you can't do what I do.
Are you big mad?
And I absolutely agree with that, and I accept that. And that's why, going forward, every single one of my vacations will be cleared in advance with the Ethics Commissioner, because it's really, really important to me to highlight that we follow the rules.
Now, said no, and the lie detector test determined Ralph.
That was a lie.
Full transparency. She made a report which we accepted, and we followed every single recommendation she made within that report. But, Mr. Speaker, as often happens at holiday time, when you're with family, friends, you exchange gifts. And if the member opposite really wants to know, I gave him a sweater, and he gave me an overnight bag.
The member out of opposition.
Laws can buy refrigeration units made in Canada instead of made in China.
Okay. Sorry, sir, can you get to the question? People are getting a little impatient.
Okay. Your carbon tax isn't going to do anything to help the world pollution crisis. It just moves it to another area. Just like your proposed firearms laws will do nothing to prevent crime, it only applies to law-abiding citizens.
Sorry. Okay, sorry, wrap up your question, please, sir.
Your carbon tax does nothing. It only applies to people who are already trying to clean things up. It does not apply to foreign countries.
Not positively inclined towards me, and at the same time try and listen in case they have a point that they're making that is worthwhile hearing and understanding, at least to understand that there are other viewpoints out there, even if ultimately I choose not to agree with them. There's a number of questions in there. I think I'm going to go to the one that I think you seem most exercised about, which is the price we've put on pollution. And as I was pointing out earlier, there are people who don't think we're going far enough in our fight against climate change, and there are...
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
Your garbage is on the way. Prepare a grand reception. Eat it if you want to.
Our friendship is rooted in interests that we share and in the things that we...
General international conversations, but there was nothing decided or of significant direct impact on Canadian policy in any way. It was more people with interesting jobs and responsibilities talking about the state of the world in
deepening my appreciation when I went back to school in my early 30s to do a master's degree in environmental geography right here at the McGill School of the Environment. So there was a number of, I didn't quite finish my thesis because I got distracted and headed into politics, but the opportunity to really dig into what I felt was the biggest issue of the time, which for me involves, yes, protecting nature.
That was a lie.
Sir said he would stand up every Wednesday and answer every question that's being asked of every member on this side of the House, and he fails to do it. He's been asked 5 times today, Mr. Speaker, about the Ethics Commissioner. For the sake of my colleagues, I'll ask it again. How many times? 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 And how many times has he met with the Ethics Commissioner?
Canadians expect clarity, they expect consistently, and when asked the same question, I will give the same answer. That's what Canadians expect.
And kids find this out very early, because you tell one lie, and what happens is it has one of the consequences that you expect. Maybe you get away with it, but it has 3 or 4 others that you don't expect. And so it's like it grows some complexity. And then you have to tack a lie on each of those little complexities.
There's some issues in terms of calculation. I'm going to try a different angle. A, was it 0 times did he meet with the Ethics Commissioner? B, was it 1 to 5, or C, 6 to 10?
The fact is, on this side of the House, we are focused on making investments that are going to make a difference in the lives of Canadians. Prime Minister. Outcrops, and then they grow 3 more complexities, and soon this little lie turns into a great big ball of lies, and at some point it becomes painfully evident to everyone. And by that time, you're in such, you see this with politicians, like that guy.
Mr. John Kerry, and if he has an associate, we'd be glad to hear from them.
We look forward to this opportunity to be able to share with you President Obama's vision with respect to
very particular ravaging which is done by the applied bombing power of this country.
the Assad regime, and only undeniably the Assad regime, unleashed an outrageous chemical attack.
It wasn't even so much the event, because, you know, people are stupid, they make mistakes, and actually the public is somewhat forgiving if you say, yeah, geez, I'm a real moron, and, you know, like, really, seriously, how could I do that? But I did, and like... Oh.
Against its own citizens.
In our opinion, and from our experience, there is nothing in South Vietnam, nothing which could happen that realistically threatens the United States of America.
Since President Obama's policy is that Assad must go, it is not insignificant that to deprive him of the capacity to use chemical weapons or to degrade the capacity to use those chemical weapons, actually
by just telling the truth. It's like, yes, I'm an idiot, you know, I'll try not to do it again. Well, that isn't what happens in this case, and Pinocchio grows this elaborate series of lies, and the fairy is willing to be a little generous to him because he's little and cute and he's still a puppet, and she tells him,
I was just curious how you feel about being the first prime minister ever found guilty of a federal crime. Well, there's the ethics commissioner who said that you going to the Aga Khan Island on the helicopter was actually deemed to be a federal crime. Now,
former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould resigned over the affair, citing the veiled threats allegedly levelled at her by the Canadian Prime Minister's office. Trudeau's principal secretary also called it quits amid reports that...
I've read that you said that he was a longtime family friend of yours, which is great. If he is, you know, that's great. Except that if he is a longtime family friend of yours...
It's a long-term family friend. I've known from a very young age, and obviously I'm always open to answering questions from the Ethics Commissioner that they may have for me.
On the fundraising issue, also dubbed the Cash for Access controversy, you know, we were at a coffee shop in Manotick a couple of minutes down from where you were, and even here, people have been saying, it doesn't smell right. Something doesn't smell right. Somebody said, I can't use the word stink because I can't say that on TV, but Canadians are uneasy with that.
It will not erase the loneliness you have felt. It will not undo the harm you have suffered. It will not bring back the languages and traditions that you have lost. It will not take away the isolation and vulnerability you felt when separated from your families, communities, and cultures. It will not repair the hardships you endured in the years that followed as you struggled to recover from what...
The Liberal Party. The trip was to a private island in the Bahamas. Bell Island is owned by the Aga Khan, spiritual leader to 15 million Ismaili Muslims and a wealthy philanthropist whose charitable foundation gets millions of dollars from the Canadian government.
He was a pallbearer at my father's funeral. He has known me since I was a toddler, and this was our family vacation.
But Liberal MP Seamus O'Regan and Liberal Party President Anna Gainey were there too, along with their spouses, as the National Post first reported today. Earlier this week, Conservative leadership candidate Andrew Scheer made a complaint to the Ethics Commissioner, who said she'd consider the request. Now the Conservative Party's ethics critic has piled on too, asking the commissioner whether Trudeau might have used a private helicopter.
Folks, we're pretty sure Justin Trudeau is here at this restaurant because the last time I saw a motorcade this big, it was at a United Nations climate change summit. And just like those summits, you know, we've got a Chrysler 300, which you can't see from here, sedan. We've got 4 Chevy Suburbans, a Ford Expedition, 2 Toyota Siennas. They've been here for about 2 hours, and just look at the tailpipes. The engines have been running all this time.
I've been accurate precisely about what took place.
Renounced the symbols.
I threw my ribbons over.
I gave back, I can't remember, 6.
Ribbons.
7, 8.
And took the ribbons.
9.
I didn't have my medals.
And that was the medals themselves.
That is absolutely incorrect. Medals, ribbons, we threw away the symbols of what our country gave us, and I'm proud of it.
John Kerry, can you trust anything he says?
Good afternoon. Welcome. Bonjour. Welcome to the State Department. Je suis ravi d'accueillir Premier ministre Trudeau, la Première Dame du Canada, Sophie Grégoire Trudeau, ainsi que toute la délégation canadienne. Vous êtes parmi les amis.